Welcome to this video on transcribing in the series of Play Blues Guitar. Transcribing, of course, can mean a number of things. It could mean that you're just listening to a phrase over and over until you are able to play it, but you don't actually write it down. The question is, though, will you remember that phrase the next day when you come back and you want to play again? So you might have to repeat that process of listening over and over, because the brain has a short-term memory and a long-term memory. And the other sort of transcribing is where you actually notate it, and that's something I've done here. I've got a PDF that you can download, quite a few phrases and also solos. I've chosen recordings that I thought were good. They were not too difficult, but as I was transcribing, I realized some of the nuances were very difficult when you're talking about vibrato, bendings, and so on. Anyway, the first recording that I'd like to talk about is by Robert Johnson, who was a blues guitarist back in the early days of recordings. He was from a southern state, I guess Mississippi, and he used to wander around with his guitar, and somebody decided that they wanted to record him, so he was asked to come into the studio and record his songs. And this one is called Come Into My Kitchen. It's a blues in B flat. That's not quite the tuning that he's using. He's tuned his guitar to B flat because you can hear the low string resonating, low B flat, through the whole piece. Of course, he played an acoustic guitar. He also had a slide, so his guitar was like a multi-instrument. It could play the chords down on the low strings, or also a bass line if you wanted to, and on the top he could play like a fill he did at the end of this phrase. Of course, most of the time he's singing, and the idea is, as blues is a language, that we also should listen to singers to get our inspiration. It's not always instrumental. A lot of great blues guitarists are also great singers. For example, B.B. King, Freddie King, and many others. 1 and 2 and 3. And I think we could use a slide rather than a bend. You better come on. The next phrase I'd like to talk about is example number 3, Albert King. And he's playing C7, which is the 4th step of the key of G, then going back to G7. So it's a blues in G, or an excerpt from that. Let's listen to the phrase. It's a slow tempo at 60 beats. Albert is one of these players who uses his thumb. He's not using a pick. The sound he gets quite forcefully hitting down on the strings, in this case the B string, and then he's got a whole tone bend. That's always going to be a little bit of a question when we're doing transcription, is where is the player playing his phrase? What position? I thought then that he went down to the 3rd position. Another thing I'd like to comment on is his sound. This phrase is from a video I found on YouTube, and you can see that he's using a Fender amp. I think it's a twin reverb, one of those powerful Fender amps, and he's got a slightly crunchy sound, which means he's turned it up really loud. He's not using any pedals. I am actually using a pedal here, otherwise I'd blow my mind. That Fender amp which is behind me, which is a super reverb, if I had to bring it up to distort, that would be very, very loud. So I'm using a pedal just to get a crunchy sound. The next phrase is number 8, B.B. King, playing over B flat 7. And let's listen. It's typical of B.B. to do that fast vibrato, especially here on the B flat. And the other thing he's doing, well, he's playing with a plectrum. You can hear the sound is a little brighter than Albert King's sound was. And his bending is very sensitive. So first he's going from a D flat up to an E flat. And then he bends C sharp or D flat up to D. Now that's something that only some blues guitarists do, playing the major third on the dominant 7 chord, which is of course a chord tone. If we look at the way the chord is structured, it's got a major third and a flat 7. You could practice that for hours and hours and you still wouldn't get it like B.B. King does. But keep trying. Please listen to that recording of Freddie King, I think it's 1972, performing live, and the tune is called Goin' Down. Let's look at the first phrase. He's up in the 10th position and just plays those 2 notes with the index finger, and then he slides the C up to a D. So you get 2 different sounds for the same note. And then, of course, he's bending. And it's a whole tone bend starting on the 13th fret. It's got vibrato in there, so let's have a listen here. Phrase number 15 is by Peter Green, who was a British guitarist. He also started the band Fleetwood Mac back in the mid-60s, and he was a wonderful blues guitarist. Let's listen to his phrase here. So first he's going up a whole tone, and not quite a whole tone here, which is typical of blues guitarists who start with the sharp 9 sound and bend up to the major third. He's also using a natural 9 here, which is B, and a 13. These sort of extensions are things that are heard in jazz quite often. We'll talk about them in one of the videos that's called Expanding the Blues Scale. He's also got a wonderful vibrato when he goes to the D7 chord. It's really hard to do that. So you keep, I've lost control, and playing F sharp is playing the major third. So he's not just playing blues scale, he's thinking about the chord tones. But he's making them sound bluesy, that's the art of playing the blues. I just wanted to get you accustomed to listening to phrases rather than huge solos, just except for this one. Taking it from there, once you can grab a few phrases, then your memory will be working better and you'll be able to learn longer phrases. And if you're doing it right, you'll be so fascinated by what you're listening to that you just can't stop. It'll be with you 24 hours a day. The phrases that you're hearing, of course, that leads to effective practicing, because then we practice things that we want to play. Makes sense, doesn't it? See you in the next video.